So, dann legen wir gleich direkt weiter. Legen wir los, machen wir weiter.
All right, then let's continue straight away. I have to apologize first because usually I don't talk about things I haven't programmed myself. So this is completely new to me. And just telling you about the Windows agent, Checkmk has been around for more than 10 years now, and yesterday I tried to find a version from 2008 because we are getting wallpaper in our new office, and we wanted to include that, and one file had about 1,600 lines, and 1,000 of them are checks that are in this file. There was no Windows agent back then, but of course that was one of the main questions back then: is there going to be an agent for Windows? And then a Windows agent was developed by somebody who really didn't know anything about Windows, somebody who never worked with Windows before. That was me, myself. And of course, being a Linux developer, I wanted to develop Windows under Linux because I had my tool chain. I could just click on a button, build my package, and of course, I just looked for a cross-compiler so I could just build the Windows one using Linux. I only had a VirtualBox by Linux XP, and I did actually pretty well. It worked very well. The Windows agent that you're all familiar with is still the basis from back then, and we just expanded that, extended that, and so on. But overall, it is an implementation that is based on a very low-level API by Windows. And for example, if you want to read the performance counter on Windows, so the network packages per second, for example, then you have to really do epic calculations and really go through pointers, blocks, and so on. So it's horrible. It really is horrible. And that, of course, led to each feature that was wanted by a customer was so difficult to program. Not as easy as Linux. Sometimes it took longer, and debugging under Windows is something that experts should be doing and not lay people such as myself. And like I said, we always try to look for people who really are very knowledgeable when it comes to Windows, developers, and they're extremely hard to find. If you just look for Linux problems, 1,000 people are going to answer. If you look for Windows problems, you only find Microsoft documentation, and very often that's not very extensive when it comes to information between the lines. So it's pretty difficult, to be honest. That's why I'm so happy that we now have somebody, Sergey. He joined us now. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to Windows. He's a software developer, and his first job was to really redo the Windows agent. And the result is what I want to introduce today. So why did we do it to begin with? And then also the concept of the new agent, and also what that means for you as the user, the benefits, and of course direct benefits and indirect benefits. So like I said, the old Windows agent, there were lots of debugging sessions, and it did work after years and years of working. Of course, there were some little problems, but usually it was just the external software that was sort of linked to the Windows API. So apparently, if you have a foreign software that makes a performance counter available that you read using the API, that at that point in time when you access the counter object, magical things happen, things are happening, and things can crash. So, of course, it was also difficult to make changes here in this agent. And this tool chain actually sort of didn't work so well, so we just thought, okay, we're going to have to really work with Windows development tools. Of course, that makes automation very difficult for us, but it's really the right path to go down. Because in Windows, I've learned that you always have to do it as everybody else does it, then you're safe. As soon as you think you have a better solution or a better idea, you're going to drown, and that happened to me again and again and again. All right, so Sergey, big picture of him right here. And if you have questions, I'm just going to refer you to him. He's going to answer the questions because he knows all the details. Okay, so of course he had a great job because he really had to start from scratch. He knew what the result was supposed to be. He really didn't have to look into all our old burdens, and that's why we have a great result now. So everything was rewritten starting at version 1.6. That's when it's going to be available. It already exists exists, it already works, but we're not calling it stable yet, so it's going to be available with version 1.6, of course. There are going to be very modern development methods that are being used, and of course the Windows APIs that you're supposed to use are being used, not the ones that you think are good, but the ones you're supposed to use. And yeah, also when it comes to the update procedure, we're definitely going to stick with these standards, Windows suggestions, because then we're on the safe side. Now, okay, for you, there are a couple interesting changes, actually. So first of all, the configuration file has changed. So the old one is still supported. The ini file is still supported, but we now have used YAML. It's called yet another markup language. It sounds very complex, but who's never worked with YAML before? Okay, quite a few of you. But like I said, it's the right thing to do. The big difference is that YAML has inherent more structure. You can really show things that you can't do with the other version. And we just tried to do that with ini. It was very, very complex, and that's why this is the right decision for us. Then, of course, diagnostics is very important as well. So the question is, why doesn't it work the way it's supposed to? So for you, it's your own diagnostics, but also in collaboration. Let's say you have a problem with the Windows agent, it keeps crashing or whatever. And then, of course, we need as much information as possible. In the past, very often, one of my 4,000 computers has a crashing Windows system, and then our question was, okay, what are we supposed to do now? And in this case, it's extremely important that we now have much better diagnostics tools, so you can find out a lot yourself as well, and also in collaboration, you can really just find solutions much quicker. And maybe it's also a problem that you can solve yourself. Then we also have the migration path from the old to the new Windows agent. We're going to do it as simple as possible for everybody. So that means the configuration file is going to be migrated automatically into the YAML file. If you're working with a bakery, you wouldn't care anyways because it's automatically created anyways. The agent is also easy to expand, especially for us, because it's just redone. We have a great API now, and all the plugins that are already available, they all work, and the agent is compatible with everything that's existing already. At the same time, we also have something that is really good. We've just invested a lot into automated tests. That plays a very important role right here. So the new Windows agent is going to be automatically tested in different Windows platforms. So the devil's in the detail, specific versions, and so on. So if there were any problems with the former agent, it was just in specific situations. And that's why it's very important that we have this test coverage, just so that we can be more stable, and also new things can be released much quicker. Now I have a couple examples for you right here. So this is what it used to look like so far. And there's a little bit more on here as well, a little bit more information, but this is the YAML format. So it's almost the same, you know, there's no big change, it's just cleaner. You can just see that it's organized a little bit better. And then YAML also has a concept like this list right here. As you can see, the counters, you can see that it's just structured a little bit better. And overall for you, this is the most important visible change. And there are also a couple new command lines, and one of them is help. So in Windows, it's just one use symbol, and I just said, okay, how is that even possible? Linux requires two, but apparently this is what's commonly done here. So we decided to stick with the standards that people are used to. Sergey also said that whatever I'm used to from the past, from the 90s, for example, things are not being used anymore the way I would use them. MS-DOS, for example, would use things that I would use. So late 80s, you know, so Dash, for example, things like that. So we're very modern when it comes to that. /. So we don't have to read all of that. I'm just going to give you some examples. Read time, for example, that just means the agent is just running all the time and you just see everything on your screen. So it can just check. This one, for example, I think everybody's familiar with that. I think it looks identical as with the current agent. That's what we wanted as well. And you can just check, okay, are we getting the right set of data right here? And you can also just limit that to a section if you wanted to. Let's just say you just want section function df. Sergey, what does the 5 mean? 5 seconds? It does it every 5 seconds, one run through? Yes. Okay. So specifically, if you're looking for an error or if you just want to see what's going on, then this is actually very good, very convenient. And there's also, you can see that no, it's good. So it's just one on top of the other one. So it's just very, very easy to see, and you can see the development. Sergey, another question. What happens if the agent is actively running? Can I still access this or no? Not a problem. Okay, so you don't have to stop the agent while it's running. You can actually do the diagnostics situation as well. So now, there's also a self-diagnosis, so you can just get all these messages. You can configure them by classification and importance. Of course, there are some notifications that are interesting to developers, and there's also some information if something goes wrong. The red portion, for example, there's an error in the configuration file. One option is async. And cache age only makes sense if async is on. That's just a mistake. So the agent's programmed in a way that it's always trying to continue on if possible. So it's always trying to make the best out of it. And it says, okay, then I just assume that it's async or the other way around. I'm not sure what it's like here, but it's just trying to run, and then maybe this one section is compromised, but not the whole agent. This slide is a slide I don't understand myself, to be honest, because we see further information. And all of this is not 100% cleaned up yet, so the notifications that are going to be visible to the end user, we're definitely going to work on that again, also how it's going to be shown and so on. And it's very important that we just have all these options. Now, with this option right here, you can upgrade your configuration file. That's the migration. Upgrade is different. Okay, can you tell me about how the upgrade works? Yes, the upgrade works like a migration tool. So after our new agent comes out, there's a legacy agent. Stop and disable legacy agent. It converts ini into a YAML file format, and it uses all plugins, programs, local, and that's it. And users are going to find some discrepancies between legacy agents and new agents. Everything has to happen automatically, and that's only done once. So you can't just install new agents and you convert and convert and convert old configurations. So you just do it once, and this option right here is for testing, because usually in order to control something, you just have to try it. We can always try it with upgrade. Okay, so that means that this option, well, it shouldn't be upgrade, it should be migrate. Maybe it's the wrong word. Yeah, but let's rename it then. So you can just manually run it again in order to try it. Yeah, that's not a problem. You can manually do that again. Protocol info file, and we're going to get a new configuration. Okay, great. Force. Well, it's about security. So the agent works as follows. We're converting or migrating once per lifetime. But once in a while, we want to migrate again. And we can force that migration again. So everything is possible. Okay, so it's still missing in the handbook, but we're definitely going to describe that in a timely fashion so that you can just read all of that. Okay, so who knows debug view? Who knows that tool?
Ich kenne es auch nicht, aber
I'm not familiar with it either, but it's a very established Windows tool apparently, and we're using that in the official API. So
das ist halt ein ganz wichtiges
that is a very important thing for us, because we're definitely going to stick to standards, best practices, right? And in addition to that, it's also very important to us that when it comes to Windows, we're going to have to focus on that a lot more, because we're from Linux originally. That's why it's something that we didn't like very much. But as of right now, I can tell you that it's extremely important to us that we have great Windows support. We're definitely going to focus on that, because we don't have to do a lot with Linux. It works very well anyways. And we have a very detailed monitoring anyway. So that means we're working on Windows, and this is the top priority when it comes to the operating system and monitoring. And we always heard that we're not looking into that enough, and we are now looking into it. It's very important to us. We really want the best Windows monitoring that's possible. That's our goal. And this is a great first step, and now we have the platform to really go for it. Now, to summarize it, well, what's going to change and what's not going to change? So everything's still the same. We still have C++ as the implementation language. Is very, portable. It's performant. It's the most performant method of programming. So it's not very complex or Java engineering, anything like that. It is just very, very good. It's a Windows service. It has the same requirements. You really don't need any specific platform you need to install anything. Nothing's worse. Everything is just as good as it was before. And I always try to make sure to just show some numbers, resources. Difficult to show that because it depends on the plugins, but you can say that the new agent is just as good as the other one, at least as good. You know, latency, of course, depends very much on plugins. If you have lots of scripts in there, for example, of course, that requires time, but the plain agent is less than a second. And then disk space is also very, very small, and so on. So it's very, very important as well. The agent needs to have minimal impact on the system. Okay, so now the big question is, what happens with all the old operating system? Is the new agent going to support Windows XP? I think that's the most commonly used Windows still. So to be honest, no, but of course the old Windows agent is still there, and it's still going to be there for a while, a long while, and that's why it's also going to be mildly supported as well. We're not going to further develop it, but this is what we're going to do in order to support the older Windows versions. This Linux agent is also working with 4.0, and we can't tell the customer what kind of system to use. We have some customers who are creating turbines, and then they have to last for 30 years, so we can't tell them you have to run updates all the time. This is the world we're living in, and of course we want to always sort of try to cater to everything you need. So what's our plan for the future? Well, 1.6, we've already seen that. 1.7, there are a couple of ideas. Nothing's finalized yet, though. One idea is to have a Python engine that's going to be included. And of course, now some people are going to say, oh, it's going to be so huge, it's going to use so much storage. All of that's true. But we would do that in order to solve the following problems. We have some very complex plugins, like the Oracle plugin, or also others. And of course, we want to make sure that they're the same on each platform. And now we had this Oracle agent for Windows, and that was okay, but it couldn't do as much as the Linux one could or can do. And of course, it's a lot of work to develop everything and test everything. If we had a Python engine, we had a platform where we can really cater to all different operating systems, so we can have more complex plugins that are the same. So this would be what we're aiming for, and it could also be integrated into the interpreter, so we don't really have to run any processes. So everybody that's using PowerShell knows that it's at least a couple hundred megabytes that we're going to need in order for this to run. So have an Windows agent with 3 megabytes. 300 megabytes later, the script is just going to be run. And of course, that's not ideal, and that's why we just recommend a basic script for plugins. Of course, it's a little outdated as well. And of course, this is one thought. If we just say we have a Python interpreter, it's running, it's very fast because it doesn't have to start an environment, and then you can just do your plugins. Apart from that, it's just a great language as well. And possibly also a graphic
Ich bin immer Freund von Textdateien, aber
I
wenn alle
love
finden, das sei
text
cool, dann machen
files,
wir
but
das
if everybody
vielleicht.
likes it, then we may
Und
actually
auch
do
unseren
that.
ganzen Plugin-Pool,
And then
den
also
wir haben,
our
den werden wir auch
plugins, the
irgendwann mal
plugins we
angucken
have,
und aufräumen
we're
müssen.
definitely going to have to look into that and clean them up.
Extension into other Windows
Extension
Domains,
into
was ist genau
other
damit
Windows
gemeint?
domains. What do you mean by that?
Wer hat diese Folie gemacht?
Who wrote this slide? But I
Okay,
don't
also wir
remember.
planen ganz tolle Dinge
Okay,
und
so we're planning
Weltreich.
great things. That's it.
Genau, also zusammengefasst.
Okay, so to summarize
uns ist wichtig, dass
this,
wir
it's
hier
very
wirklich
important to us that we're making progress. That's really what it comes down to. That's a very important topic. And now we have some time for
Der
questions.
Experte steht auch bereit.
The expert is here,
Nur zu.
so
Ich
go
muss das
ahead.
Mikrofon jemand anders rumschleppen. Das mache ich
But
jetzt nicht.
somebody has to run around with the microphone. I'm not going to do it. I have several questions. The migration of the ini files, Checkmk ini and Checkmk local ini, does that happen on the agent's side, but does that also happen simultaneously on the side of the agent vendor? So I have the migrated ini files in a YAML file for the new installation. Well, if you use the bakery, it doesn't matter. Well, that's the question.
Das ist relativ einfach.
That's quite simple.
Wir nehmen Ihre
Passt, man hört dich sehr gut. Man hört dich gut.
funktioniert.
Ja.
Wir nehmen Ihre Local INI.
We take your local ini, the Checkmk ini, convert it to YAML,
Unsere Verzeichnisse.
right in our folder,
Funktioniert.
and everything will always work.
Wir konvertieren
Don't worry,
mit,
we converge with
Das ist
legacy
garantiert 100% Kompatibilität.
agency that's 100% compatible,
Fehler möglich ist, aber
and errors are possible, but I'm sure we don't have any.
Konvertierung ist wie
Conversion,
wir versuchen auch
we try
zu finden, Bakery.
to also find in the bakery Checkmk ini.
Wir denken,
And if we,
wir, sicher, dass diese
when we're
Checkmk
sure
ist
that the
von
Checkmk
Bakery,
ini comes
wir
from the bakery,
konvertieren diese Checkmk
then we
zu
convert this
Bakery
Checkmk
INI.
ini to the bakery
Das ist
ini,
nicht mehr Kundensorge.
and the customer doesn't need to worry about it. That's bakery. That's independent.
Kundendateien, Checkmk
Customer
Local
files
INI,
like
das ist
Checkmk
nur Kundendatei und Checkmk
local ini, that's a customer file. And Checkmk ini that doesn't come from
User
the bakery, they are being converted to the Checkmk user YAML.
YAML hast,
If somebody doesn't like YAML,
könnten wir immer INI benutzen.
we could always stick with
Zurzeit
ini.
YAML ist
But right now, YAML
terminale Repräsentation von unserer Konfiguration
is the representation of our configuration data and nothing more.
mindestens ins 1,6.
So
INI
at least
hat
starting from
gleiche
1.6,
Rechte wie
the
YAML.
ini is on the same priority level as a
Bakery
YAML.
erzeugt nach wie vor
So the
INI.
bakery still produces an ini, is that correct?
Genau.
Yes.
Es hat ja auch den Vorteil, weil wir den
That's an
Legacy
advantage
auch
because we also
unterstützen.
support the legacy agent and that one cannot reach YAML. I'm
Das
sorry, I
ist-
couldn't hear your
Das
question.
geschieht automatisch. Also,
Alles ist automatisch von Bakery.
Everything is
Normalerweise,
automatic from the bakery.
Sie bekommen ein MSI. mit
You get an
INI drin.
MSI with an ini inside.
Agent weiß,
The new
das ist
agent
INI
knows there is an ini
von
inside
Bakery.
coming from the bakery,
INI-Datei von Bakery
converts it
zu
from the
YAML,
bakery to YAML,
Bakery und funktioniert fehlerfrei.
and then it all works.
Das ist einfach.
It's simple.
also er erkennt einfach, wenn die INI-Datei von der Bakery erzeugt
When
wurde,
the ini was made
weiß
by
der
the
Agent
bakery,
das,
the agent
dass es
knows
gebaked ist und tut sie
that
automatisch
it's baked and automatically converts it
Genau, auf der Client.
on the client side.
Richtig. Das wird sich in Zukunft vielleicht mal ändern, aber momentan
Maybe in
haben
the
wir noch
future
zwei,
we will change this,
aber
but
die Legacy
right now,
Agent
as
auch,
we have the
die
legacy
Bakery,
agent as well,
gibt's
and the
nur einmal.
bakery only exists once,
Kann dir aber eigentlich egal sein.
but doesn't really matter to you, I guess.
Hallo. Ich habe angefangen.
Okay.
Ich habe nur eine kurze Frage
I just have a short question. The new agent has a new service name, is that correct?
Ja.
Yes. Thank you.
Neue Service name Checkmk Service.
It's called Checkmk service. It's simple.
Ist er grün oder gelb-grün?
So I have a question. It was on a slide that the plugins will remain plugins, but there is one plugin that is so important. This is the MK inventory plugin. I know it as a PowerShell, as a VB. Is there a chance that it may find its way in there so I don't have to look at it anymore? So that it just works. It's one of the pain points for me. Well, last week I tried MK inventory and it worked. So the MK inventory plugin is in this agent for customers. Is everything in there? I think the question is a bit a different one. I think the question was whether the functionality of the inventory plugin in C++ is directly integrated into the agent. That may come later. Well, as usual, we are depending on your cooperation. Send us tickets. You can order with stickers outside. You can also perhaps accelerate a few developments. Hello, my question is, on a Windows system I have a Python interpreter installed directly from the Python web page, and I have a Python script put into the local checks, and the discovery is not finding it. Is there something I need to look out for? I'm also using Python. I added it to the Windows environment variable, but discovery is not finding the Python check. Yeah, that's a discovery problem. I'm afraid this is not an agent issue. I need to talk to my colleagues about this, why this can happen.
Local plugin, yeah?
Is it a local plugin? A local. Well, talk to us in the break. Maybe we can clarify that. I think that is not a general problem. Shortly, to make sure that I understood it correctly. If I migrate to 1.6, the new Windows agent automatically comes. The agent bakery. I will use the agent bakery and the agent updater, then I automatically have the new Windows agent on my Windows system and everything works without any interaction from my side. Or do I have to change my rules to make sure the new agent is being rolled out? Without any interaction and without any hassle, yes. If the new agent has been distributed with the update and is not compatible to Windows 2003 server, what happens to these systems? From our experience with the new update, it's not completely integrated in the update plugin, but everything functions perfectly. The new MSI is based only on the Windows standard API. There is no custom actions, nothing. So it installs within a second, and that's it. And there are no mistakes. When you have the root permissions, and normally you need those to install an MSI, there shouldn't be a problem. Now we are using a test procedure for installing or updating the agent.
Und Sie könnten manuell neue
And
MSI
you
schreiben
can
in,
write manually a new MSI in a special folder,
und, neuer Agent, diese
and
MSI
the new agent
installiert, stoppt, installiert und restartet. Und das ist alles.
installs, stops, installs, and restarts, and that's it.
Zusammen mit, Dateien von Bakery.
Of course, alongside files from the bakery.
Mit Update, wer sind Sie?
With the update, we're certain.
Da ist noch in der dritten Reihe. Ich sehe, du bist noch nicht so geübt mit dem Mikrofon.
Matthias, ich hab eine Anmerkung.
Matthias, I have a remark about Python and Windows.
Wir schaffen uns ein Problem,
We are creating a problem if we have the if we want to move the MK into Python, because then it's not working with Solaris and others. Well, yeah, the platforms you mentioned, they will be extinct by the time we run into that problem.
Ich bin ja Realist und kein Optimist.
Hallo Matthias.
Hello, Matthias.
Du hast vorhin schon mal angesprochen,
You mentioned it,
manche handgeschriebene
that some handwritten plugins
viel Zeit brauchen.
do take up too much time. Would there be a possibility, optionally, to add a timestamp to the output, maybe that it can be readable? Yeah, there is a syntax for that. Every sanction in the agent can say from when it is, and this information is being forwarded to the Checkmk, and thus it knows how old the information is. How often? Yeah, that's in the agent. You can have it run asynchronically in slower intervals.
Ach so, wie lange es gedauert als Statistik sozusagen.
So you want statistics for how long it took for debugging.
Im Logfile steht es drin. Also reicht dir das, dass es im
It's in the log file. Is that good enough for you? Okay. People say the agent is so slow, but actually I think it's the plugins that are so slow. Yes, it's definitely the plugin. The agent is never slow. No, it's true. The plugins are the ones that take some time. Depends on the plugin. If I am in a giant Oracle database and then have 100,000 entries, of course it takes a while.
Okay, gut. Super.
Ja, ich hätte noch kurz eine Frage, Thema 32.
Yeah, my question is 32 or 64-bit. According to screenshots, it's installed on the x86, but sometimes there was a 64-bit binary and then some dependencies didn't work. Will there be two versions, or how do you do that? In 1.6 we have two versions, the 32 and the 64. And we have a 64-bit operating system. The 64 installs, and it's 32-bit. The 32 installs automatically. And don't worry, I think there is one issue only. We always install at program files x86. Yeah, but that's a problem. No, it's not a problem. Trust me. But if you want, we can just install it in program files. I mean, it doesn't matter. Well, the problem is that Windows then assumes if it is in x86, 86, sorry, still it's a 64-bit exe file, and then there is a digression there. We can manage. Yeah, otherwise I want to be a tester. Do we have an entry for Windows Agent testers? Please put your name there. So, final question maybe, and the rest in the break, because there's a small bit I want to show afterward, and I want dinner to get cold. So is the VMI natively integrated in the agent, or is it still a plugin? VMI is integrated twice. We have VMI integration fully in our agent, and to be safe, there is an optional link for vendors in Windows, so we can have the API integrated in our agent from an external process, and we can call our agent.
Telefon ist 101%.
Okay, danke.
So it works 100%. The integration.
Gut, Sergej, vielen Dank.
Right, Sergey, thank you.